Film Diet Podcast.
And then it's just sequel after sequel after sequel.
There was no character development at all.
Just that on pure technical levels.
There are filmmakers that don't want it just to be an entertainment experience.
Hello, welcome to Media Academy Online Film Diet Podcast.
In this podcast, we're going to be reflecting on 2018 and some of the films that came out then.
Yeah, all right, Green Book. You know, I understand both sides of the argument about Green Book being not historically accurate. They didn't verify the African American guy's side of the family or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I know I haven't looked into it. This is what I've heard. That, you know, it's not 100%.
Yeah, if we look at it as a film as it is, it was a nice little one.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of film does come out every so often, like every few years. Yeah. You know, this sort of heartwarming,
smaller budget, simpler story.
Two actors sort of not getting along, but then getting along and learning to, you know, get along. Yeah. And yeah, that's basically it. There's nothing more to it. But yeah, good film. Viggo Mortensen. Yeah. Great actor. Love his performances. Yeah. And in this, I really liked it. I watched it like twice in 1 week. Yeah. Yep. And I don't do that often. You know, very rarely I do that these days, if ever.
The thing that I like about it, from an industry supportive point of view, is that it shows people that you can make a film with a small amount of people, simple locations. Yeah. It's a film that any wannabe filmmaker could make. You know, yes, you're going to have all the cameras and stuff, but that's it. You don't have to rely on fancy visual effects. You don't have to rely on a big fancy score. You don't have to rely on having lots of money to build huge sets. Yeah. It's a simple story that anyone could have told in their own way, just with a couple of mates, a camera. That's it.
It's all performance-based, really, isn't it, these films?
That's right.
When you think about it.
Relying on script and character development. Yeah. Rather than relying on the spectacle.
Yeah. And the director as well, Peter Farrelly, he's one of the Farrelly brothers, the guys that started off with Dumb and Dumber and There's Something About Mary and all those wacky comedies that came out through the 90s and 2000s. And to see him come out now with a film like this, I thought it was awesome. It's refreshing to me.
It shows a film doesn't have to be $200 million film to be successful. This film did so well.
Yeah, and it was 20 odd million budget, you know.
It was the smaller budget. It won so many awards. Oscars loved it.
Yep.
So it made above $300 million. That's pretty good for its budget. If you compare that to a film that might have a budget of $150 million,
like Dumbo,
will make more than Green Book, but not by a huge amount. But if you had 10 films with the budget of Green Book and then put the money together of all those collectively, that would still make a lot of money for the studios. Yeah. So these smaller ones still should have a place
in the industry.
And
yeah, just a good, simple, solid film. Not historically accurate.
No.
And it doesn't say it is. It says it's inspired by true events.
Of course, yeah. So, but other than that, it's just an Italian and an African American and their banter and their friendship growing.
Ready Player One, Mr. Steven Spielberg.
Righto.
We've sort of spoken about this previously in one of the podcasts, in the first one.
Yeah.
Touched on it.
So, Ready Player One, video game inspired, the whole look at where VR and all that can go in the future and build a whole alternate universe within the technology for us to exist in. The concept's good.
Very current.
It is
a popular thing at the moment with kids.
So when I saw it in an area that has a lot of Asians. And so there's a lot of things that I saw in it that I didn't have any clue who that character was, but the Asians did. So there'd be a certain character that shows themselves, like especially when that huge climax scene, and there were certain characters from pop culture that popped up who I didn't know who they were, but the room just went, they just started applauding. All the Asians in the audience started applauding, and I'm looking at them like, I do not know who that is.
What's going on?
But it was really interesting to see that they were adding in those other cultural references.
Yeah.
However, speaking of cultural references, are they trying too hard?
It's a good question. To me, it just seemed unoriginal. I don't know. It just seemed, I was bored.
Yep.
You know, it's all good and dandy to show me stuff that I know, but
And that's my point, is that are we trying to rely too much on existing content?
I think we are leaning way too heavily on that, in my personal opinion.
So if we look at something like Wreck-It Ralph that has, the similar sort of the whole computer game mergy concept. Wreck-It Ralph, they did the same thing. They're throwing in Sonic and they're throwing in all these other characters,
That kind of makes more sense to me. In an animated film like that,
I agree.
It works a lot better.
I enjoyed Wreck-It.
I did. Yeah.
I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one yet.
Second one not as good.
But the first one, I actually really enjoyed it. Again, they had all those little nods to past computer games and things like that.
Yeah.
But the story was, was simple, solid.
Yeah.
We could go along for the ride. Where this one there's a lot more going on, and they would just throw in these certain references out of the blue.
And a lot of it didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just didn't make sense at all. Like, I couldn't sort of get behind how they operate their avatars and, from their little room at home. Yeah. It just kind of didn't make sense to me.
And that brings another thing, right? At the beginning, they said, to be able to be in this universe, you need to be in this little area in your house where you can sort of operate like treadmills or whatever it might be, little systems to be able to, for you to be able to function in this thing. Fast forward later on in this film, everyone has the kit on and they're just on the street and they're fighting. So what? Do you need the whole setup in your room, or can you do it on the street? And then why aren't they walking into buildings and things? And
I have no idea how it works. Like, I was just like, it's like a cop out. It's like, okay, we got a few ideas, but we won't make them stick in reality, or we won't. I'm cool with believing little bits and pieces, but that, when it's based around your whole film, it's kind of like you're either with it or you're not.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nah, I can't believe it.
Maybe it would have been a better film if it was stripped back in a smaller film.
Would have been awesome, I reckon.
Instead of trying to make this big, giant, epic, so much going on and all-inclusive, but maybe having, just playing with the idea of having two societies. You've got the real society and you've got the technological society that lives in the virtual world, and working with, dirty dealings within both worlds and how that all connects, and having a smaller story that plays on those differences rather than saying, no, we've got these two worlds and they're all part of one, kind of, but they're not. And then, the end of the world will happen if this stuff happens. And
is this the unofficial Tron 3?
Yeah. It was very Tron-y, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Tron came out, found that a lot more easier to get involved with.
Even the remakes of the Tron, I struggled with a bit. It all feels a bit dreamlike to me.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's almost like it's all imagination and it's not reality.
Which... There's a fine line. Like, you've got something like Avatar that was it was dreamlike too, but it was beautiful. Yeah. It was stunning. Yeah. Where Tron is just dreamlike, but there's nothing to the vision. It's just grids and lines.
Yeah. As a concept, I found that a bit more interesting. Yeah. It's not the best film ever or whatever, but I just felt some things in that they did pretty right. Yeah. But I'm comparing it to Ready Player One, which I don't like much at all. Yeah. Like, I was nearly falling asleep in the cinema. Yeah. I was yawning, and I was like, when's this going to end? And for me to be like that in a Steven Spielberg, it's just amazing to me these days when I think about that.
It's sad, because there's been a lot of Steven Spielberg films that have come out that were nothing.
Yeah, the last, since what? For me, it's been ever since War of the Worlds. It's just been a downward spiral. He did Munich, which I love.
I didn't mind War of the Worlds.
It's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
For what it was.
It ain't no Minority Report.
Of course
it ain't no AI. I love AI.
E.T. His golden years. Yeah. Definitely not.
I mean, he's had his duds here and there, especially after, let's say, he's had 1941, he's had Hook, Colour Purple, which is alright, Empire of the Sun, he's had a lot, and then Amistad and Lost World, and
maybe his crutch is that he's got too much now. He's got too much money, too much scope. He can make things as big as he wants. But when you're working with less resources, with a smaller story, simpler story,
well, his strongest work is that, because it's Jaws, when he was facing devastation after devastation. Right, the next one was probably Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is his next massive one. They're all massive, but Raiders of the Lost Ark was huge, and he had to stay under budget. He couldn't go over budget 1 cent.
Yeah.
So he was very restricted to what he could do, and he just had to sort of do what he could on the day and just do things very cheaply.
Yeah.
And that whole idea, you know, and
it's kind of like he's pre-owning DreamWorks era.
Yeah.
And now he's post-owning DreamWorks, where he can do what the fuck he wants because he's the boss.
And I'll be surprised if he even directed much of Ready Player One, because it doesn't feel like a lot of his films these days. They more so this one when he does his dramas. I feel the Spielberg there, but when I see like this one, Ready Player One, I'm thinking, how much does he actually have input on this?
Well, it's a very different kind of film to make than his E.T. ones, in that this is all huge giant visual effects. I'm not saying that he wouldn't understand that, but there's going to be some sort of there's going to be people under him with the knowledge to how to make these films, making the decisions, as opposed to something small like E.T. where he's making all the decisions.
I almost think, when I think about the concepts for this film, and we're following a protagonist that is late teenager sort of age, I think this film would almost work better if it was kids.
Yep.
You know, like Stranger Things sort of age.
There is a lot of Stranger Thing-esque bits in it.
Yeah, and when I'm watching these characters that run around in this world, playing video games and stuff like that, I play video games, but I'm looking at these guys thinking, it just doesn't seem as exciting.
No,
like if you had little kids or younger kids running around, I reckon it'd be a lot more exciting because the characters could be more interesting and be like more fun.
Yeah, another question. Because you can do everything, should you do everything? Restraint should have been played with this film a lot because the concept itself is quite interesting.
Yeah.
They've thrown every single thing at it, and the end was just stupid. It was just so much going on. And
I couldn't even remember, like, I know, it just turns into this big fight and then...
Yeah, it was just so much stuff going on. Or was it people?
My brain just goes, all right, I've had enough now. I'm just be on autopilot.
What I found most interesting about it was not the film, but watching the film with a packed theatre full of different culture and how they react, because that was quite interesting to see what they would react to in the film and what got them involved. And so maybe we're not the audience.
Yeah, we're not the main audience. Definitely not. Even though on the outset it seems like we were supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they had the Back to the Future car and they had Alan Silvestri doing the score. Yeah. You know, it had little hints of his previous work, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's the stuff I love, you know, and that's great. And then it's just like, it just flushes all that shit down the toilet to me. Like, and then they go to, like, the Shining world. And it's like, oh my God, you going there? Spielberg, you going there? I know you knew Kubrick and all that.
Yeah,
which
that was a bit
fine. But I'm like, you're going to touch something that you shouldn't. Like, oh my God, like, I was like, this is fucked up. Like,
yeah, that was very convoluted and pointless. That bit.
How would you like it, Spielberg, if someone did something of your film, like E.T.? If they put something like, I'm going in E.T. land now. Yeah. How would you like that?
It felt like we needed to make a puzzle, so we're going to make something stupid. The first puzzle where they had the car and
car drives backwards.
Perfect. That was great. I enjoyed that.
You like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You probably didn't.
No. Well, look, it's not like I didn't like it. I was just like, how could that be
so simple?
So simple, and no one have done that yet.
But I think what I liked about it is that it was a simple solution to something that could have been more complicated. Second thing, the Shining thing, it was complicated. It was like, there was no simple solution to that.
I was like, what's going on? What were they even doing there?
I don't even remember how they ended that.
Yeah, how did that even happen and why?
How about we just have something that looks complicated and there's a simple solution to it?
Yeah, you're right there. That first problem made sense, you know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it does bring up a lot of other questions about why surely someone else would have done that.
Oh, I mean, if you've ever played games online...
They will find anything, any flaw. Yeah. They will find any little glitch, they will find it.
Yeah, anything to bloody... Yeah, it's insane. Like, you know, the people that made this film, Spielberg and the writer even, whoever, they have no idea how video games work and how gamers play them.
Yeah.
You know, because the whole time I'm sitting there going like, no, that wouldn't happen. People are so fucked up and people are so crazy and, you know, it's just an all-out frenzy on these online games, right. You know, and it's just like, that doesn't translate into this society. Like, how could that function and work?
No, that's...
when you got people like the Joker that just want to cause mayhem just for the sake of it, constantly.
And if you can make a new account, then they're going to do stupid shit and then just make a new account.
Oh.
Yes, there was this whole money structure thing, but if you start with nothing, they're just going to do whatever they want. Start creating a new account.
Oh, totally. It's just like, it just doesn't make sense.
They built a whole second society.
Are we overthinking a stupid
bit to...
but put it this way, if
breaking it down a bit
Spielberg
too much.
wasn't attached to it, I would think of it differently.
Unfortunately, I don't want to be saying this, but it feels like Spielberg is trying too hard to fit in with the cool kids.
Yeah. It's like, I need a hit. I need a hit. I haven't had
he
one.
wants to be young again.
Yeah, and he hasn't had a hit.
Showing his insecurities.
Yeah, maybe he's made it for his old kids.
Grandkids.
Yeah. I have no idea. I don't even think he knows why he made it.
No.
He's like, did I make that? I went into some studio for 3 days and looked at some dailies.
Yeah.
And set up some shots. But that's about it.
A lot of green screens.
Yeah.
And then they told us, no, we're going to put this in. Oh, yeah, no worries.
Yeah. You just do what you guys do.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right, moving on to the next one. Tonya.
Margot Robbie. She's always positive in my book. Well, she doesn't look as... She's not dressed up in this film to be glamorous.
Nice. She was willing to... Dress down. Like... Some of those awkward teenager scenes, she didn't look attractive. She didn't look like the stunning Robbie that we all know. She looked like an awkward teenager.
And she played it well.
She did. She played it spot
rough.
on.
They were rough. Her in a relationship with her partner.
The interesting thing about the film is that it was such an out there, and it's a third person looking in, thinking, why are you doing that? Why are you accepting that? And why are you reacting to something that way? You look at it, but then you look at these characters and you believe the reasons why they're doing that.
Yeah.
And it is so out there, but at the same time, it fits the characters.
Just on a performance level.
Yeah. And how they turn such a simple story about a competitor getting smashed in the knees and how that all exploded, and that forced Tonya, the real person Tonya, to not be able to compete anymore in the end. And that story itself was the least exciting part of the story. The characters was the more exciting part of the story, was the nature of those characters and the whimsical elements of it, the rough element of it.
It felt human.
Yeah.
It felt like a human movie. You know, flaws and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, you've got Margot Robbie, Sebastian Stan, Alison Janney. She won the Academy Award for playing the mum. You know, those performances are so strong and believable, you know.
And again, I think we're sort of doing this zigzag, and we're going to another film that is rock-solid characters.
Yeah.
They're not relying on big spectacle to cover up flaws in character development.
Yeah, script. Yeah.
Simple story. Told well, shot well,
acted well.
But at the end of the day, being Tonya, it was a very heartbreaking ending, really.
Yeah.
Because as much as she was a rough person and went through some tough things, and she wasn't most elegant of people, she still had a passion that she loved and enjoyed, and was told at the end, due to external factors, that she wouldn't be able to do that. Now, whether she actually had a part, the real Tonya had a part to play in that, I guess we don't know, we won't know, but in this version of it, you know, she was a third party and had no connection to what happened.
It really felt like they didn't hold back much. Like, you definitely felt dirty at times to the movie, and you're like, oh shit, this is pretty intense.
Yeah, but at the same time, it had charm to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was watchable. It wasn't like gross. It wasn't upsetting.
The enjoyment I got out of it was the fact that it was like a glimpse into a dirtier, rougher life.
Yeah. You know, these are the kind of films that are filmmaking at its best. You know.
And there still was that chasing your dreams element to it too. It was a new way of telling the chasing your dreams story. Yeah. Where we've seen so many people do a similar story where it's about chasing your goals and making it big and all that stuff. And they're all very polished and huge build-up, huge climax. And the people themselves, they get painted so perfectly, where this one just painted every other person as a human. Yeah. Where they haven't tried to create, okay, this is the reason why we need to root for this person, and this is the reason why we want to hate this person. They didn't try and paint such a black and white outlook on life.
And just one of those ones that's like, you know, when you're watching it, oh, this is like solid and it's a winner.
Yeah.
Just like you're going to get something out of it.
So let's change gears a bit. Let's talk about an animation.
Incredibles 2, what do you think?
It was a good continuation. It was difficult because the original Incredibles was so long ago.
Oh,
Doesn't even feel like it.
I was a little kid when that came out. So what do you think overall? You think it's one of the better Pixar sequels? I think it is, because most of them have been shit, apart from Toy Story.
Yeah, no, I think it continues the story well. It's very hard because Pixar are starting to create this tradition of creating sequels way after the original one has come out. Whether we look at like Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, that's made a sequel, but again, it's its own style, its own theme, and it's different, slightly different.
They echo each other.
Yeah.
Like, they're very similar, but...
Different direction, though. It's like...
Yeah, it's a strange...
Instead of staying on the road, they've turned left and...
Yeah.
Changed it slightly.
So you liked it?
Yeah.
What would you give it out of 10?
Maybe 7.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I'd give it a 6.
Okay, yeah.
I have issues with it,
Let's work through them.
Okay. My issues, I found it a bit boring in places.
Yep.
I found the story wasn't as strong as the first one.
It's definitely not as strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like where the characters were at, where they went with the characters. The family. I didn't like how the dad was the way he was, jealous of his wife. I felt like that kind of took away what the first one sort of built up. Like, they were so like a strong unit by the end of the first film.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was all kind of just muddled with for the sake of creating a new film.
Yeah.
I feel like there was more story, that they could have created a story that brought the family forward together as a unit, and then divided the family through the film through scenarios.
And that's a good point you brought up. When you think about it, there wasn't too much of the children. There should have been more of the children. They should have had a larger...
I found it weird that they sort of shifted focus to the mum. That was enough done in the first one about them both.
And especially when you're looking at your target audience.
Yeah.
They're going to want to see the children.
Yeah, totally. I actually thought this one was going to be about the kids.
Yeah.
And it would have made sense for it to be the new generation. And it would have made it different. Like, you're kind of rinsing and repeating the idea of the older person trying to relive the glory days, or trying to, be the superhero that they want to be, rather than someone learning about their powers. We haven't really had that in the first one. I mean, with the main character, you know what I mean?
So here's a maybe a rewrite for them. Maybe they could have began with insecure mum and dad reflecting back on their yesteryear, their better times, where they were king of the crop. Maybe they could have ended it with the children becoming cream of the crop, and that the parents, or the dad specifically, was happy to see that he wasn't the king, but his children's were. And
take a step back.
And that was enough for him.
Yeah, like he'd almost completed his journey.
That's right, and he's passing on the
torch.
The torch onto the next...
To Violet and Dash and Jack. And I felt like there was no point, this is my next issue, setting the film straight after the first one. There should have been a few years gap or something.
Especially when there was a big gap for us.
Yeah, it just seemed a bit strange.
And there's no reason why they had to have it that close. The story still would have worked with a gap.
I think it almost would have been good to take the film in a different direction. So instead of it being like a sort of another superhero romp, like the first one, where it's the typical villains and this and that, it might have been better as like a road movie, or something like they're going on a holiday.
Yeah.
And Samuel Jackson's character has a family as well, and they kind of go on a holiday together. They go somewhere else, different country, and just all the drama that comes from being a superhero with a family.
Yeah.
Going abroad.
Maybe playing with the concept of famous person trying to not be noticed and just trying to disappear for a little while.
A lot of elements of that. Yeah, totally. All that sort of thing. And I just found it a bit too samey, but lesser.
Definitely not as strong as the first one.
But don't get me wrong, like, it's not a bad film.
No, there's a lot of positive things to it, and looking at it from a child watching it, they'd probably really enjoy it. And there's a lot of things in it. Having said that, I don't know how many children were going to see it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
especially when feels like it's written for us more than anyone else.
Yeah, it does. I couldn't imagine it being that appealing to kids when they got so much other superhero content around. But when you think about when the first Incredibles came out, what kind of superhero stuff was around then?
Yeah,
especially for kids.
No, there was
pretty much nothing.
Yeah,
you know, like that's worth mentioning.
yeah.
You know, you had like your Batman cartoons on TV and all that sort of thing. You know,
well, they were very different.
But there wasn't like what there is now. My other issues with it, I just found like the jokes weren't as snappy, you know, the humour and stuff like that, and the character development was a bit off. And the villains I found I didn't like that whole idea because you had that guy with the radio waves or the TV stuff. And I liked all that and that mystery and intrigue and all this sort of thing. And with the music was really good. And I loved all that. But then as soon as it got revealed that the brother-sister corporation was that whole side of the movie, I was like, I'm bored of that idea. I'm bored of that kind of thing. That reveal that they're villains in the end. I'm like, ugh.
I think the one thing that I can say that I would do different would be less action scenes. Because it felt like there was so much action going on that the story didn't really progress too much during those action scenes.
Yeah.
Or just have action scenes, but make sure the story is continuing.
Zips along.
Yeah. Instead of where, you know, it's weird to say there's action scenes, but then it's slow at the same time, but it felt like the story did slow down, that they just put a break on the story for those action scenes sometimes. Yeah.
Do you think they'll be making another one?
They might make another one in 5 years, maybe.
Yeah, because I was thinking it would have been a good idea. I know they wouldn't do it, but like set it like the kids have all grown up and they're their parents' age, and then the parents are like, you know, elderly.
If they did that for the second one, that would have worked better with the dad looking back at his past, his yesteryears, and being physically unable to be that again. Yeah. And then, you know, how you would react to that, rather than him looking back at those years and wanting that again, but still being able to get it. Yeah. So
it's a lot more depressing, that movie, by the sounds of it, like having them elderly and all that. But it would have been fun. They could have done it in a funny way.
Technically, though, beautiful, looked amazing.
Oh, voice acting's always good.
Pixar they have it down pat, the visuals, especially when you look at any other animation studios, cheaper budgets or even with the same budget, there's just not that eye to detail. Unfortunately, it's just very simpler scenery.
There's a big gap in quality when it comes to...
And the only one that comes close or is the same is Disney, which is all owned by the same people. So they're really...
Because they got Pixar over there and they got guys from there in Pixar now.
They're one and the same, really.
Yeah,
even though they're probably...
It's just a brand name thing now, really.
Yeah.
Same factory, slap Pixar on it, or Disney
same
animation.
Creatives at the helm.
Because, you know, like, what's the other Disney animation films that haven't been Pixar that are as good, you think? Like Moana? Is that one?
Moana... In terms of visuals, this is...
Zootopia.
Has
it been any more?
Frozen.
Oh, yeah, Frozen. That's not Pixar, is it?
No. And then
that's right.
It all started with Tangled, which is their Rapunzel story. That was when Lasseter first came on at the helm and started making creative decisions and approving all the works and having some say in how the direction of the films. That's when there was a huge jump in quality. Yeah. Where, yes, it might cost more to make, but you'll make more in the long run because it's a much more polished...
Sticks around for longer.
Beautiful film. Yeah. Which that matches the visual quality and detail. Big Hero 6 is another one.
Yeah, that was good.
Where you just watch it and it's just... Every frame is just beautiful. Yes. It's thought out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Incredibles 2, it's fine. It's all good. One of the better Pixar sequels, but overall, the first one's such a better film in every way. But the animation's looking good.
At least one thing we can say with Pixar, which is a lot of things you can say for Pixar, but one thing is that they are actively writing originals. Yeah. And they're not afraid to write originals, which is good to see.
That's something.
So I think we'll leave it there for today. So make sure you jump online, go onto our YouTube, plenty more content there, but we'll see you next time.
Yes, have a good one. Adios. Margot Robbie.
Yeah, so Margie.
Good old Margie. I love me Margie. Margie on toast. Every day.